Hello, we are back. We are ready to read our book club today, which is Be Holy, for I Am Holy book club. And we are reading the complete visions of Anne Catherine Emmerich, which she is amazing. They have been okayed by the Catholic Church in 2004. By Pope John Paul II, she was beatified. So,
And all her writings were looked at that
yeah,
to be historically correct, which she knew nothing. If you look, she's sick in the bed. A lot of visionaries are, and it's because this takes them over. Often suffering brings us to God, and that's what happened with her. And she also, the person that arranged her visions arranged it in the that coincides with the Bible for each story, because she went through the whole Bible. And so he put it in that chronological, if you want to call it chronological order. So I put in the key events, the 70 key events from Jeff Cavins. I put an arrow to about where we are, like we were yesterday, Genesis, I think 41, where we were at Genesis 41. I don't know where Ark of the Covenant comes in at, but I'm sure we're still in Genesis, because I think, what is Genesis, go up to 50 or something? So
gotta
so
look it up.
we're about to go into other things. Maybe we're already coming out now here, because the blood and the
Yeah.
doorpost. I
And
think
then these are little tidbits that she sees between events that we know from the Bible. So
so.
they're
Oh,
all
Exodus.
little extra things that she saw. They're her vision.
This is
So,
where we move. This is where we move into Exodus, because it's about the blood. Remember, Jeff Cavins.
okay.
So yeah, we're
They're
moving into Exodus.
very, very interesting, guys, because I always like to know a little more.
It
I'm
gives you
always left
glimpses.
wanting to hear a little more about the Bible.
Yeah, it gives you little glimpses, because you've been studying so long. So listen, the more you study the Bible, the more you want to know. That's why Jeanette
Yeah.
wants to know a little more. She looks at details like that, and that's what's exciting about this. And it is all approved. Okay.
Today is day 15. So we are going to read about the Ark of the Covenant. On the same night that Joseph took possession of the holy thing, a
Moses.
golden on the night that Moses took possession of the holy thing, a golden casket shaped like a coffin was prepared, in which at their departure the Israelites took it with them. It must have been large enough for a man to rest in it, for it was to become a church, a body. This was the night upon which the doorposts were signed with blood. As I wished, as I witnessed the rapid working at the chest, I thought of the Holy Cross, which too was hurriedly put together on the night before the death of Jesus. The chest was of gold plate and shaped like an Egyptian mummiform coffin, broad above and narrow below. On the upper part was a picture of a face surrounded by beams. On the sides were marked the length of the arms and the position of the ribs. In the center of this coffin-like chest was placed a little golden casket, wherein was contained the holy thing, which Segola had taken out of the sepulchre vault. In that lower part of the chest were sacred vessels, among them the chalice and cups of the patriarchs, which Abraham had received from Melchizedek, and which with the blessing had been entailed upon the firstborn. This was the first form of the Ark of the Covenant, and these were its first contents. It had two covers, the lower one red, the upper one white. Only afterwards, on Mount Sinai, was made the chest inlaid with gold inside and outside, and in it the golden mummiform coffin was the holy thing, with the holy thing was placed. The coffin did not fill the chest. It reached out only about halfway up the chest, and it was not so long. For at the head and foot there was still room for two small compartments, in which were placed relics of Jacob's and Joseph's family, and later on the rod of Aaron. When the Ark of the Covenant was placed in the temple upon Sion, its interior had undergone a change. The golden mammiform coffin had been removed, and in its place was a little mass of whitish substance shaped like the coffin. Even when a child, I often saw the Ark of the Covenant. I saw it inside and outside, and I knew of all that was put in it from time to time. All the precious holy things that the Israelites preserved were kept in it, but it could not have been heavy since it was easily carried. The chest was longer than broad, its height being equal to its width. It had below a projecting ledge. The top was wrought skillfully in gold for about half an ell in breadth. Flowers, scrolls, faces, suns, and stars, all in different colors, all most magnificent. Although the ornamentation was not very much raised, the apex and leaves arose only a little above the top of the chest. At the corners below this border, at either end, were the two rings through which ran the bars for carrying it. The whole chest was of setim wood, covered with gold and beautifully inlaid with figures of different colors. In the middle of the ark was a small but unnoticeable door, by which the high priest, when alone in the most holy, could take out the holy thing for blessing or for prophesying. It opened in two parts toward the interior, right and left, and was large enough to admit of the high priest reaching it easily. Where the bars for carrying it extended over these doors, they were slightly curved. When the doors were opened, the golden casket in which was preserved the holy thing in its precious coverings also opened like a book. Above the top of the ark arose the throne of grace. It consisted of a
throne of grace.
I thought I said that.
You said thorn.
Above the top of the ark arose the throne of
Throne.
grace.
Yeah. Like, you know what a throne is, that a king sits on a throne.
It consisted of a hollow table covered with gold plate, and it is lay holy bones. It was as large as the roof of the ark, but only deep enough to rise a little above it. It was fastened to the ark by 8 satin wood screws, 4 at either end. It did not rest exactly on the ark. There was space enough between them to afford a sight from side to side. The heads of the screws were of gold and shaped like fruit. The 4 outer ones fastened the table to the 4 corners of the ark. The 4 inner ones ran into the interior. Each end of the throne of grace was concave, and in each cavity was securely fastened a golden cherub about the size of a boy. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
In the center of the throne was a round opening by which a tube ran through the roof of the ark. One could see it in the space between the roof and the hollow table. This basket-shaped opening was surrounded by a golden crown, 4 transverse pieces fastened to the crown, to the rod, which from the holy thing in the ark rose through the tube and the crown, and like the petals of a flower spread out into 7 points. The right hand of one of the cherubs and the left of the other clasped the rod, while their outspread wings, the right of the one and the left of the other, met behind it. The 2 other wings only slightly expanded, did not meet, but left the side of the crown from the front of the ark free. Under these wings, the cherubs extended their arms with warning hands. 1 knee only of each cherub touched the ark. The other limb was in a hovering attitude. The cherubs turned their face a little to one side with a slightly agitated expression, as if they felt a holy awe before the radiant crown. They were clothed around the middle portion of the body only. On long journeys, they were removed and carried separately. And
I saw on the petal-like points of the rod flames burning, which had been enkindled by the priests. The substance used for these lights was brown. I think it was a sacred resin. They kept it in boxes, but I have often seen great streams of light shooting up out of the crown and similar streams descending from heaven into it. Wow. Also, oblique currents breaking out of it in fine rays. These last signified the route by which the people should journey. On the lower end of the rod inside the ark were hooks from which hung the 2 tables of the law, and below them the holy thing. Below the latter, though not resting on the floor of the ark, was a ribbed vessel of gold containing manna. When I looked sideways into the ark, I could not see the altar nor the holy thing. I always regarded the Ark of the Covenant as a church, the holy thing as the altar with the most blessed sacrament, and the vessel of the manna as the lamp before the altar. When I entered a church in my childhood, I used to associate it with different parts of the corresponding parts of the Ark of the Covenant. The mystery, the holy thing of the Ark, was to me what the Blessed Sacrament is to us, only not so full of grace. Although it was something full of strength and reality, it made upon me a more obscure, a more awe-inspiring impression, but still one very sacred and full of mystery. It always seemed to me that all in the Ark of the Covenant was holy, that all our salvation was in it, as if rolled up in a ball, as if in a germ. The holy thing of the ark was more mysterious than the most blessed sacrament. The former seemed to be the germ of the latter the fulfillment of the former. I cannot express it. The holy thing of the ark was a mystery as hidden as is Jesus in the most holy sacrament to us. I felt that that only a few of the high priests knew what it was, that only the pious among them knew it by divine enlightenment and made use of it. To many, it was unknown, and they profited not by it, just as with us, so many graces and wonders of the church pass unheeded. They are lost, as all salvation would be, were it founded on human will and intellect instead of upon a rock. I could weep over the sad state, the blindness of the Jews. They once possessed in all the germ, but the fruit they would not recognize. First, they had the mystery, the holy thing. It was the pledge, the promise. Then came the law, afterward, the grace. When I saw the Lord teaching in Sychar, the people questioned him as to what had become of the holy thing of the Ark of the Covenant. He answered them that mankind had already received a great deal of it, that it was even then among them. The fact that they're no longer possessing it as they once did was proof that the Messiah was born. Wow. I saw the mystery, the holy thing, in a form, in a kind of veil, as a substance, as an essence, as strength. It was bread and wine, flesh and blood. It was the germ of the blessing before the fall. It was the sacramental presence of the holy propagation of man before he fell. It was preserved to men by religion. It was possible for it to be ever more and more recognized in subsequent generations by a continuous purification through piety, which purification was perfected in Mary, thus rendering her fit to receive through the Holy Spirit the long looked for Messiah. Noah, in planting the vineyard, had made the preparation, but here in the holy thing were contained already in the reconciliation and protection. Abraham had received it in that blessing which I saw bestowed upon him as something tangible, as a substance. It was a mystery entrusted to one family, therefore the great prerogative of the firstborn. Before the departure from Egypt, Moses took possession of the holy thing. As before this, it had been the religious mystery of one family. So now it became the mystery of the whole nation. It was placed in the Ark of the Covenant as the most holy sacrament in the tabernacle and in the ostensorium. When the children of Israel worshiped the golden calf and fell into gross errors, Moses doubted the power of the holy thing. For this, he was punished by not being allowed to enter into the promised land. When the ark fell into the hands of the enemy, the holy thing, the bond of union among the Israelites, was removed by the high priest. It was as was always done when the danger threatened. And yet was the ark still so sacred that the enemy, under the pressure of God's chastising anger, were forced to restore it. Few comprehended the holy thing or the influence it exerted. It often happened that one man, by his sins, could interrupt the streams of grace, could break the direct genealogical line that was to end in the Savior, or rather in the pure vessel that was to receive him from God. In this way, the redemption of the human race was long delayed, but penance could again restore continuity to that line. I do not know for certain whether this sacrament were in itself divine, whether it came forth simply and purely what it was directly from God, or whether it owed its sacred character to a kind of priestly supernatural consecration. I think, however, that the first proposition is the true one, for I know for certain that priests often opposed its action and thus retarded redemption, but they were heavily punished for it. Yes, oftentimes even with death itself. When the holy thing operated, when prayer was heard, it became bright and increased in size, shining through the cover with a reddish glow. The blessing proceeding from it increased and diminished at different times, according to the purity and piety of mankind. By prayer, sacrifice, and penance, it appeared to grow larger. I saw Moses expose it before the people only twice at the passage through the Red Sea and at the worshiping of the golden calf. But even then it was covered. It was removed from the golden casket and veiled as the Blessed Sacrament is on Good Friday, like it was carried before the breast or raised up for a blessing, for a malediction, as if exerting its influence even at a distance. By it, Moses restrained many of the Israelite from idolatry and saved them from death. I often saw the high priest making use of it when he was alone in the Holy of Holies. He turned it to this certain direction as if to strengthen, to protect, to shield, sometimes to shower a blessing, to grant the petition, sometimes even to punish. He never touched it with uncovered hands. Jeanette?
The holy thing was also plunged by him into water. This he did with a religious intention, and the water was given as a sacred draught. Deborah the prophetess, Anna the mother of Samuel in Shiloh, and Emertentia the mother of Saint Anne drank of this water. By this holy drink, Emmerich was prepared for the conception of Saint Anne. Wow.
Wow.
Saint Anne drank not of this water, since the blessing was in her. Joachim, through an angel, received the holy thing out of the ark of the covenant, and Mary was conceived under the golden gate of the temple. At her birth, she herself became the ark of the holy thing, which then reached its destination, and the wooden ark in the temple was deprived of its presence. When Joachim and Anne met under the golden gate, they were surrounded by dazzling light, and the Blessed Virgin was conceived without original sin. A wonderful sound was heard. It was like a voice from God. Men cannot comprehend this mystery of Mary's sinless conception in Anne. Therefore, it is hidden from them. The ancestors of Jesus received the germ of the blessing for the incarnation of God. But Jesus Christ himself is the sacrament of the new covenant, the fruit, the fulfillment of that blessing, to unite men again to God. When Jeremiah, at the time of the Babylonian captivity, hid the Ark of the Covenant and other precious objects on Mount Sinai, the mystery, the holy thing, was no longer in it. Only its coverings were buried by him with the ark. He knew, however, what it had contained and how holy it was. He wanted, therefore, to speak of its publicly and of the abomination of treating it irrevertibly. But Malachias restrained him and took charge of the holy thing himself. Through him, it fell into the hands of the Essenians, and afterwards was placed by a priest in the second ark of the covenant. Malachias was like Melchizedek, an angel, one sent by God. I saw him not as an ordinary man. Like Melchizedek, he had the appearance of a man, differing from him only inasmuch as was suited to his time. Shortly after Daniel's being led to Babylon, I saw Malachias as a boy of 7 years, wearing a reddish garment and wandering around with a staff in his hands. He seemed to have lost his way, and he took shelter with a pious couple of Sapha of the tribe of Zabulon. They thought him a lost child of one of the captive Israelites, and they kept him with them. He was very amiable and so extraordinarily patient and meek that everyone loved him. He could therefore teach and do what he pleased without molestation. He had much intercourse with Jeremiah, whom he assisted with advice when in the greatest perils. It was through him also that Jeremiah was freed from prison in Jerusalem. The ancient Ark of the Covenant hidden by Jeremiah on Mount Sinai was never again discovered. The second one was not so beautiful as the first, and it did not contain so many precious things. Aaron's rod was in possession of the Assyrians on Horeb, where also a part of the holy thing was preserved. The family that Moses appointed as the immediate protectors of the Ark of the Covenant existed till the time of Herod. All will come to light on the last day. Then will the mystery become clear to the terror of all that have made a bad use of it. Wow.
Wow.
So much in there that I'm like, my head is spinning right now.
I
The
know.
holy thing, it was bothering me. I kept hearing the holy thing, all these readings, all these days. And I'm thinking, what is that holy thing? What could it be? The Holy Spirit? At one point we thought it was probably the Eucharist, but not yet, but kind of like a floating thing, kind of like, coming into what it was gonna be. But now look at Mary. When Mary came in the picture, when Anne
He was the
conceived Mary, that was the holy thing.
And then, because it was a germ, a seed. Wow. Jesus was the germ, the seed. But what was so interesting is we learned Mary's mother's name.
Oh, I knew that. Anne
I
and
didn't
Gerald.
know that.
Yeah, Saint
You
Anne.
see how this is teaching me
Yeah,
so much?
it's in the Jewish roots of Mary. It's
I
all
don't
in the
remember
book by
that.
Brant Petrie. It's all in the
I
book.
don't remember that. See, I read that, but I don't remember. I heard it on our Audible.
It
Wow.
needs to be reread and reread and reread, because everything anybody out there that's not Catholic, or even that is Catholic and doesn't know about Mary, is in this book.
But
And
why
people
did you
ask us so many times, why do you guys pray to Mary? And okay, we don't pray to Mary. You have to
But
go through
why did you buy that when we have the Audible?
because I want to be able to go in there and find things and highlight. And then when people ask me questions,
I see.
I can bring the book and I can
Okay.
say, okay, right here.
Right.
Read it
Okay.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, wow. And so the first thing we heard about was Moses took possession of the holy thing, a golden casket shaped like the coffin. So I didn't realize it was that big. Like I had imagination of like a chest like this size, and then two big angels on the side. Here they say the angels were the size of a small boy, which you
I cannot
gasped
believe
at.
that either. I'm like,
You gasped
wow,
when you
those
were
were
reading. You were like,
big.
what? Like you were like, and I was like, I know.
Well, that's why it had to be carried by so many, and it had the
Yeah.
things to carry and everything, because it was
And
big.
then I thought about my church I go to for Latin Mass. There's two angels that were bought 100 years ago by one of the rich families that face the altar. And I remember looking at them. I'm like, geez, they're the size of little altar boys. It was so cute. And then here you sat there and you were like the angels were, and I was like, they're not cherub angels though. They look like full grown men angels. But these, I think, were these like little cherub type angels on the Ark of the Covenant?
I don't know. I gotta reread it because the description is just like so descriptive that sometimes you lose yourself in it,
I know.
because it's just too descriptive. But then it's
I
very
know.
important that we see it, right?
And then when she was talking about it being Egyptian like I could see it, I was like, oh yeah, the Egyptian like mummy things. Maybe that's what they were, like maybe that's why that came up, because that they were used
Well, they did use the word mama. I'm sorry, guys, for
mummified.
my pronunciation. I'm
No,
not a very
it's
good
okay.
reader.
No,
I like
stop.
to read, but I'm not a very good reader. But
No, no.
but you know what you guys can do is you guys can tune me out and just read yourselves, and then when I'm done reading, you can put the voice back on.
I know you got mad when I was telling you. You seemed like you did when I was telling you you said thorn. No, but
Because I tried 3 times to pronounce it and I couldn't, and you just gotta let it go then if I can't get it.
I thought you were, but I thought you didn't know what it was, so I was trying to tell
No,
you.
it's
So you were
okay.
like, "Oh,"
It's okay.
but
Yeah,
you,
I know.
but you know what throne is, right?
I know what a throne is. I don't know what this was though. Thrawn.
No, it was not Thrawn. This is the way throne is this is the way throne is spelled. Throne is spelled.
Well, that's what I thought I said. And
No,
then you
you
corrected me.
no, you said
So
thorn.
I'm
You
like, I'm
said
saying it wrong. She
no,
corrected
no.
me.
First you said thorn, then you said Thrawn. But it's the O, whenever there's an E after a consonant, the O becomes long. So just so you know, you say the O when there's a E after a consonant. That's how you know it's a long O. So anyway, it's 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 throne, and it means like to sit on.
I know what throne
So
is.
I was like, wait a minute, throne? Why is it talking about a throne here? Where is the throne? We just read it. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why are they talking about a throne? And then I'm thinking the throne of Jesus. Like it was all like, wow. Now I can't find the
But
part.
then they said it's one, and then there was a second Ark of the Covenant. I thought it
Then
was
it
only
said a
one.
second one. Yeah,
I
then
thought
it
there was
said
only one.
that's what I thought. So it really blew my
But see, if you
mind.
look at the Ark of the Covenant pictures, because it is is it Leviticus that it's,
So maybe
um,
the second one was smaller.
well, because there is a seat in between the two cherubs,
Yeah,
and
they
that's
say
supposed
the
to be
seat of,
the
yeah,
seat.
and they say the seat of mercy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I didn't see, like, I see like a little seat. I don't see a whole throne. But I think it's a different size. I think
I
maybe
have to
they,
reread it because I
yeah,
kind of lost.
I think maybe the second one was made a little smaller, is what I'm thinking. Maybe that's why we only see one part of it. I don't know.
Well, see, the
But
Bible also, it is in one of the Gospels that Jesus said himself. I don't know exactly where it is, but um, I remember him saying that. No, one of the disciples said it, I think, or the apostle said it, that there's so much that is not in the Bible
oh,
that in
sure.
order to write it all, it would take like a crazy amount of years to
Right.
read it because there's just so much. So these are little tidbits that these special people have been chosen to be given by the Holy Spirit to see these things. And
Well,
thankfully they were able to
scribe.
write it down for us so we can see it and we can kind of get a little bit of insight.
But it's all
But
shorthand. You're right. It's all
yeah,
shorthand. It's all shorthand. Years
what
ago,
do you mean by shorthand?
okay, that's what I was going to say. Years ago, secretaries wrote symbols to mean whole
Oh,
sentences, so they called it shorthand. So when in my mother's age, there were a lot of secretaries, there were nurses, secretaries, and they would write in shorthand. So the Bible is actually shorthand, and so when we got to this part here, the reason that our churches, the top of our churches are shaped like the bottom of a boat. They're wooden at the top. In fact, my son and my daughter-in-law just went to daily mass together Monday because we had to miss Easter Sunday with my daughter-in-law because her grandmother's birthday fell on the date of Easter this year. So here, we looked up, and that's why the top of the church is like an ark, and the Noah's ark. So right here it says, Saint Catherine Emmerich writes, above the top of the ark arose the throne of grace. What is the throne of grace? Mary shares with, she's up there in heaven. She's also in Jesus is the throne of grace because he dispenses it, but she's also the throne of grace because she helps with that. So I thought that so interesting that here they were talking about the throne of grace and we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant, Mary. So that really, really got me. And then when she talked here about wood screws, I'm like, I thought they just used dowels back then. So I wanted to look into all of these things, but they actually looked at all of her writing and it's historically correct. So there's some kind of wood screws that they use that aren't just dowels.
We need to look into the one place that we went yesterday, which was so interesting. Oh my gosh, I actually read it, and I'm not a very long reader.
Yeah. Oh
That
yeah.
Yeah, it was the Jewish roots something, right? That were like,
Yeah.
what was it called? The Jewish roots
Um,
of the Bible or something. And in there you can
right.
look up certain things and they'll talk to you about it. Like yesterday we learned so much about Joseph's wife and we didn't even know
The
about this
Jewish
stuff.
roots, the
And
Jewish roots of Catholic mysticism. That's what it was.
yeah, oh my gosh, Joseph and at Asnath, his wife, Joseph's wife. We didn't know a lot about his wife because it's not in the Bible, but because of these mysticisms, these mystics that she has these visions, we are able to know all these little things, tidbits in between the fine lines. But I wanted to learn a little even more about it. I wanted to make sure that it was kind of right because sometimes we have doubt. And oh my gosh, Hen found this that I'm sure she put it in yesterday's.
Yeah, I'll put it in again
Um,
today's.
oh, it was so interesting because yeah, everything she talked about was there. And I'm like, wow. So, and even a little more, they talked about certain angels and a new angel with a new name that I never even knew about was in there. So it was just so very interesting. So I'm going to definitely ask you to look this up later about the second covenant. I
Okay.
want to know about that first and second covenant if it's in anywhere else. That's
Well,
just so interesting.
what's interesting is she was sick in bed her whole life. She didn't have access, but those writings that the Jewish roots of mysticism are what they consider a, a apocryphal or something. It's the site is run by a priest in Italy, and it's the Middle Ages. Like they didn't put these things in the Bible, but these were writings, and they didn't find them fully 100% real, but they were like these mystics. So these are kind of the apocryphal writings. So I don't know if that means that I don't know exactly fully, but if you look at the website, they'll tell you. But it's something. This is a priest in Italy that him and an
We are
and a
just learning so much.
yeah,
It's
him
I just
and
love it. I love this
him
kind of stuff.
yeah, him and a Jewish scholar. So it kind of reminds us of Brant Petrie's The Jewish Roots of. So when I found it, I couldn't believe it. I knew Jeanette. I didn't, but Jeanette, I didn't really read enough of it. But Jeanette called me later and she's like, "Oh my gosh, Hen, did you read what you sent me?" And I'm like, "Well, no, not really all
Yeah,
of it. I
because they
just read
talk
a little
about a
bit."
different angel and then they talk about Enoch in there too.
Yeah.
And he came in the picture. And I'm like, oh, we don't know that much about Enoch, but I know that he was so important that he was taken up. He was one of the people that got taken up without dying. No one found his body. So I'm like, I want to know more about him. And they talk about it there. Oh, it's just so interesting.
And when Jeanette notices something, I know it's big. And I'm like, I send things, I don't always read it all. She and she's not a big reader, so for her to read this is like huge.
Yeah.
So when Jeanette was like, "Oh my gosh," I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to read this more." So we got to dive into that. And I looked a little bit more at it, but I had craziness. I'm still like 6 days, 7 days behind on my catechism. I was trying to get caught up today, even, but now I have to read Natalie's book, and I got to look into this. And now it's like, so we're it's like a
It's like we're back in school studying.
oh God, but we have so much fun with it, guys. Don't
Oh,
mistake
yes.
it.
Yes, we
Don't
do.
mistake it. We have a lot of fun. It's just overwhelming at times. So these descriptions, this throne of grace, this golden crown, the cherubs. See, it says cherubs here, Jeanette. So it's like slightly agitated expression. I was like, what? Like these things, it says on long journeys they were removed and carried separately. I guess so. They were the size of two small boys. I mean, you know, so I found it interesting. So were they saying that Aaron's rod was a part of it? And then I found this article I was going to actually look up and have us look at, but
Yeah, you can pause it and do that. You can
okay, let
pause
me
it and do
pause
that.
it and let's look, because I don't know if it's significant. You tell me. Hold on, I'm going to pause and we'll look. Okay, here it is. It's the Jewish encyclopedia about Aaron's rod, because when I heard that, I never knew Aaron's rod was part of the Ark of the Covenant. Did you?
Yeah, I knew it was in there,
I
uh,
didn't.
along with the manna and
Yeah,
along
I
with
knew that.
yeah, it was the manna, Aaron's rod, and it was something else. What was that?
The Moses thing, the rod of Moses.
No, it was Aaron's rod.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand here. Because look what the Jewish encyclopedia says. It
Because
says, oh,
wasn't that what budded? Isn't that what
right,
budded?
right. It says the rod in which the hands of Aaron, the high priest, was endowed with miraculous power during the 7 plagues preceded the Exodus. Yeah, so this was before the Exodus. In this function, the rod of Moses was equally potent. Upon 2 occasions, however, a singular virtue of the spontaneous power, while not at the grasp of its possessor, was exhibited by the rod, Aaron's rod. It says at one time it swallowed the rods of Egyptian magicians and blossomed and bore fruit in the tabernacle as evidence of the exclusive rod of the priesthood of the tribe of Levi, see Aaron. So in commemoration, this decision was commanded that the rod be put again before the testimony. Remember, they don't believe in the what we believe in with Mary and all that. A later tradition asserts that the rod was kept in the Ark of the Covenant. So right here, the Jewish encyclopedia says a later tradition asserts the rod was kept in the Ark of the Covenant. And then it says the main fact, however, is thus confirmed the rod was preserved in the tabernacle as the relic of the institution of the Aaron, the Aaronic priesthood. So Aaronic priesthood. So do you see what that's saying, Jeanette? We always knew that the rod had to do with the priesthood. We didn't know, she said in here in the complete visions, that there are relics. Did you see where she said there are relics of where can we
Other things in the covenant.
right, is she saying the bones of where is she saying the bones? That's what I'm trying to find, this relic. I was so blown away, like you said, it was
It's
so
just too much. We're like,
I was
whoa, stop for a minute. Because the Bible gives us little tidbits that we like read over and over and over and over again. But here you're getting thrown with all this stuff. And you're like, whoa.
right. And okay, so here comes another part I was going to bring up, but now I'm trying to think of that. Oh God, it's just like, and then the veil, because the veil was another thing, and the bread and the wine. I just wish I could find where this she says there's a relic, and I'm like, a relic? Is she saying relic of the bones? And then here they're talking about the relics. See, the holy thing, the bond of union among the Israelites. This is a study in itself. I mean, Jeanette, I'm just
I
this.
kind of want to like highlight and look up all these things. I kind of feel like doing
Yes,
that. I just don't have time. I
we
just
just
don't
don't
have
have time for everything. There's
we
the
do not
the
have time.
time is just like, and Saint Joachim and Anne at the Golden Gate.
Yeah, but you guys can take like a snapshot if you want with your phone, or you can stop it and write it down, and then you can look it up if you're that, and you can share it with us if you guys look it up. You're welcome to.
Right.
And message either one of us, or
Yeah. I love how she also puts in here the relation to Jesus. Like she always does that. Like she does such a good job of that. I just wish I could find, let me see relic. Let me see if I do a search, if it'll come up about the relic.
Okay.
Let me see, search. Will it search? Okay, Moses concealed a relic. And it doesn't tell me the page. Moses concealed a relic of Joseph's body. Moses conceived a relic of Joseph's body. Where was that?
See, I didn't know that.
That's what I'm trying to say.
I did not know that.
This is not like making sense. Oh no, now I lost it.
You want to pause it?
Okay. No, yeah, here, Ark of the Covenant, 17. Okay. Small compartments were placed, relics of Jacob's. Okay, here it is. This is when the Ark of the Covenant, it said relics. Where is it? It took me here. It said that there is, okay, let me pause it just to find this relic. Okay, so afterward on Mount Sinai was made a chest inlaid gold inside and out. The coffin did not fill the chest. It was only halfway up the chest. It was not so long. For the head and foot, there was still room for 2 compartments were placed the relics of Jacob's and Joseph's family, and later on the rod of Aaron. Okay, so they're not saying they're saying relics. Are they talking about bones? I don't know. Look, it's saying the coffin did not see 2 small compartments will place relics of Jacob's and Joseph's family. So is that bones of their family? Did the Ark of the Covenant contain bones? I don't know. I don't know. So, and then later on, the rod of Aaron, which is where the seed, the rod of Aaron, like you said, it bloomed. So Jeanette, it's just so amazing.
Yeah, I'm still blown away with the Anne and Joachim conceiving Mary with that.
Mm-hmm.
That holy thing. And after that, the holy thing was no longer there, I guess.
That was the seed.
It was Mary. It was Mary.
That was the seed, the holy thing.
That's Mary. Big. That right there is
huge, huge. So anyway, guys, we were blown away by this. Oh, and she says, I always regarded the Ark of the Covenant as the church, the holy thing as the altar, and the most blessed sacrament, and the lamp. When I entered my childhood, I used to associate with the corresponding parts of the Ark of the Covenant. The mystery, the holy thing of the Ark was to me what the Blessed Sacrament is to us. Well, what was the Ark of the Covenant? Mary. She had within her the Blessed Sacrament. Within her body was the holy thing. So that the Ark
was the tabernacle.
She was the tabernacle.
He was the living tabernacle.
And that's why in the St. Joseph study that we're doing, the consecration, they talk about St. Joseph. He was living in a tabernacle with Mary and Joseph. He was living with the tabernacle. Yes. He was always in adoration. Because
they're always in adoration.
Yeah, the tabernacle was with him, Mary and Jesus.
Yes.
He was with her when she was pregnant. So it just was so good.
And also Mary, after she gave birth, there was always a little part of the child that always stays in you.
In the mother, that
And
that
also that child will
microchimerism.
always carry a little piece of the mother in them.
Yes,
So wherever Mary is, Jesus is.
that's right.
Wherever Mary was present, Jesus was.
Yeah, what she's
So
talking about is a science article, and I'll link that again. The science article about microchimerism.
it's a
That,
really big word. I
yeah,
guess.
Jeanette and I both have, it says a piece of our sons. I don't think they can find daughters, but I have my two sons, you have your two sons within, and our two sons
I
have
would have got
within
that.
them a part of us. So never forget that. We
That's so
always have,
special.
it really is. And then let me just say this last part I want to say, because it was talking about Saint Joseph as the veil, the his cloak. He was a kind of a veil over the ark, the holy thing. In our thing, Saint Joseph, she said, I saw the mystery of the holy thing in a form, a kind of veil, as a substance, an essence, as a strength. Joseph was that veil. He was that strength. Mary had the veil over her. That's why we wear the veil. So guys, oh, this just blew
Yes.
my mind.
Very powerful.
So
And
thank
it's a
you.
big book, guys. We have a lot more stories to go.
Yeah, and there's so much here we wanted to go through, but there's just too much.
We are barely here, right? And we've been doing it for a couple of weeks now. We're barely here.
Yep. And Jeanette, Deborah, the prophetess, Anna, the mother of Samuel. I didn't know this, Deborah, the prophetess, and Anna, the mother of Samuel. Once again, the Bible, this just all. And I didn't know this, Emerentia. I don't know how you pronounce this, but Emerentia or Emerentia, that was the conception of Saint Anne. I mean, I
Yeah,
didn't know.
and these names and stuff, you guys can write them down and you guys can look them up on your own.
Yeah,
The names might vary a little bit because, like, Noah at the beginning of the book
was
was called
no
Noe by her, Noe. So it took us a little bit of reading to
to
figure out.
realize.
Okay, she's talking about Noah. Maybe that
Right,
was a different name he had. Um,
right.
but yes, because
Just
they're
like
her visions, guys. They're her
just like
visions. So
the names got changed from Abram to Abraham. They, Matthew to each, or Peter to Rock. Like each of these things, they get their name change, and Noah was one of those. So, and then let me say one more thing. The wonderful sound was heard. It was like a voice from God.
wow.
Another one. Like there's just so many things in here, guys. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah. When
oh,
Joachim and Anne met under the Golden Gate, they were
yeah.
surrounded by dazzling light,
Lights,
and the
dazzling.
Blessed Virgin was conceived without original sin.
And they found out when there's conception, there's a picture of conception, there's a flash of light. They did a I don't know, an MRI, whatever, during conception, and a flash of light takes place, just like surrounded.
And all this, if you guys want to get more deeper in Mary, all this is found in this book. They talk about Joachim, they talk about Anne, they talk about, from Jewish roots. He goes back to where we went, to the
Yeah.
Jewish roots, which is these other people that are just Jewish. And it's all in there because they go way back. They look at other books. Uh, I
Remind me
forgot
to
the
link
names, but
that too. Remind me to link the book to your whole, that you're doing. We have a couple of links today that I have to remember. I hope I remember them. You're gonna have to help me. Okay, guys.
bye,
Thank you
guys. We'll see
so
you
much.
later, God willing.
Thank
Bye.
you so much for